Hello, welcome to Biology, the scientific study of life. The tree of life, an introduction of biological diversity. Changing life on a changing earth. Life is a continuum extending from the earliest organisms to the great variety of species that exist today. In this unit, we will survey the diversity of life and trace the evolution of this diversity. One of this book's themes is the interaction between organisms and their environment. Throughout this unit, we will see examples of the connection between biological history and geologic history. Geologic events that alter environment change the course of biologic evolution. When a large lake subsides and forms several small lakes, for instance, some populations of organisms in the lakes become isolated and may evolve into different species. Conversely, living things change the planet they inhabit. For example, the evolution of photosynthetic organisms that released oxygen into the air had a dramatic impact on Earth's atmosphere. The first of these organisms included prokaryotes, similar to those in the dense mass that resemble stepping stones. Note in this figure an artist's conception of Earth 3 billion years ago. Another example of life-changing Earth occurred when plants moved into land, as Linda Graham explained in the interview in this book. Much more recently, the emergence of Homo sapiens has changed the land, the water, and air on a scale and at a rate unprecedented for a single species. The histories of Earth and its life are inseparable. This chapter, or the chapter in this unit, also emphasizes key junctures in evolution that have punctuated the history of biological diversity. Geology or geologic history and biological history have been episodic, marked by what were in essence evolutions that opened many new ways of life. Historical study of any sort of an inexact discipline that depends on the preservation, reliability, and interpretation of past records. The first record of past life is generally less and less complete the farther into the past we delve. However, each organism alive today carries traces of its evolutionary history in its molecules, metabolism, and anatomy. As we saw in Unit 4, such traces are close to the past that augment the fossil record. Still, the evolutionary episodes of greatest antiquity are generally the most obscure. Conditions on early Earth made the origin of life possible. Scientific evidence is accumulating that chemical and physical processes on early Earth aided by the emerging force of selection, producing very simple cells through a sequence of 4 main stages. 1. The abiotic non-living synthesis of small organic molecules such as amino acids and nucleotides. 2. The joining of these small molecules monomers into polymers, including proteins and nucleic acids. 3. The packaging of these molecules into protobionts, droplets with membranes that maintained on an internal chemistry different from that of their surroundings. And 4. The origin of self-replicating molecules that eventually made inheritance possible. This scenario has many uncertainties, but it does lead to predictions that can be tested in the laboratory. In this section, we will examine some of this evidence for each of these 4 stages. Synthesis of organic compounds in early Earth. Earth and the other planets of the solar system formed about 4.6 billion years ago, condensing from a vast cloud of dust and rocks that surrounded the young sun. It is unlikely that life could have originated or survived on Earth for the first few 100 million years because the planet was still being bombarded by huge chunks of rock and ice left over from the formation of the solar system. The collisions generated enough heat to vaporize all the available water and prevent seas from forming. This phase likely ended about 3.9 billion years ago. The oldest known rocks on Earth's surface, located at a site called Issue in Greenland, are 3.8 billion years old, although certain chemical data from these rocks suggests that life may have existed then. This evidence is open to different interpretations, and no one has yet found fossils that old. As the bombardment to early Earth slowed, conditions on the planet were extremely different from those of today. The first atmosphere was probably thick and water vapor, along with various compounds released by volcanic eruption, including nitrogen and its oxides, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and hydrogen sulfide. As Earth cooled, the water vapor condensed into oceans, and much of the hydrogen quickly escaped into space. In the 1920s, Russian chemist A. Oparin and British scientist G.B. Halden independently postulated that Earth's early atmosphere had been a reducing, electron-adding environment in which organic compounds could have formed from simple molecules. The energy for this organic synthesis could have come from lightning and intense UV radiation. Halden suggested that the early oceans were a solution of organic molecules, a primitive soup from which life arose. In 1955, Stanley Miller and Harlow of the University of Chicago tested the Oparin-Halden hypothesis by creating laboratory conditions comparable to those that scientists at the time thought existed on early Earth. Their apparatus yielded a variety of amino acids found in organisms today, along with other organic compounds. Notice that many laboratories have since repeated the experiment using different recipes for the atmosphere. Organic compounds were also produced in some of these modified models. However, it is unclear whether young Earth's atmosphere contained enough methane and ammonia to be reducing. Growing evidence suggests that the early atmosphere was made up primarily of nitrogen and carbon dioxide and was neither reducing nor oxidizing, electron removing. Miller-type experiments using such atmospheres have not produced organic molecules. Still, it is likely that small pockets of the early atmosphere, perhaps near volcanic opening, were reducing. Instead of forming in an atmosphere, the first organic compounds on Earth may have been synthesized near submerged volcanoes and deep sea vents, weak points in Earth's crust, where hot water and minerals gush into the ocean. These regions are also rich in inorganic sulfur and iron compounds, which are important in ATP synthesis by present-day organisms.